Hi, Eileen. Nice to see you again.
Hey Nancy, it's good to see you too.
It's so fun for me to know I have a friend across the ocean in Ireland. Eileen
Yes,
and
it's
I, yeah,
it's great for me too.
Eileen and I have never met in person. It's pretty far for us to get to meet, but we have met online many times. And we are here to do our quarterly author talk.
Hello everybody.
Hi, everybody. If you're an author or a reader or whoever you are welcome to listen. You might enjoy or learn something from our approach. Today, we want to talk about blogs. And blogs can be different for various reasons and different subject matter. I know Eileen and I have a little bit different type of blog that we write and do use different platforms. And sometimes that either gives you more or limits what you can do depending on what you're doing. I think I first started writing a blog back before I wrote my first book. So maybe around 2009 or 10. I found just a free site where you could set up a blog, just purely a blog. And I just started writing. Eventually, I quit and started writing a book, but I sort of carried over that same theme from a long time ago. And for me, that is sort of the theme of my website and the theme of my books. And I try to just keep it all the same. And mine sort of just birthed into writing about poignant moments in my days, observations, inspirational things that had happened to me or to others. And mostly, I like to write about life moments, inspiration, hope, and sometimes mostly stories, and within the books too. But sometimes poems, which I'm not a poet, which Eileen is, and she knows how to write poems. I don't, but I write semi poems. And so my website is that topic. And if you go to my website, you see the topic inspiration, hope, entertainment, because some of my writing I want to just be pure fun and entertaining. And some of those poignant moments are entertaining anyway. Um, for my followers and readership, I know when I've hit upon something that strikes them because I'll get comments, something that they relate to. And so I try to approach it that way, things that are relatable to all of us, which are so many things, but maybe something that really struck me that week is something I'll write about. And Eileen, before I go farther, tell me kind of your approach and your topic for blogs.
Well, I write on WordPress, which I find quite good. And when I started, I really hadn't a clue what to write about. I felt I should be writing a blog, but I didn't know what to write about. So at this moment, I vary it a while. I might take a theme and have a theme running for about 4 weeks for different audiences. And for 1 week, I might be aiming it, because I used to be a teacher, I might be aiming it at children and parents of children or teachers that might use it, for children and teenagers. And I try and keep the language a bit simpler and use lots of things like videos and poetry and pictures just to keep the interest there. And then on the second week, I think I aim one at writers, because I am a writer and try to be helpful towards writers. And then I do another one for parents and teachers. I'm aiming, and I kind of bring in a lot of kind of educational things as well. And then usually my fourth one is usually might be local stuff in my own country. And that often includes history. I love history as well. Might include literature, could include anything really, whatever takes my interest. And then I go off and
Mhm.
explore. I kind of explore the topic. Sometimes I just say, please help me put something in my head, and something comes. Like this last week, I had a clue, and the word grace came into my head for some reason. And so I took it, and I'm going to explore that in lots of different ways. And I find it very interesting. I enjoy it.
I read that one. I try to read all of yours, and I read that one. I really liked it.
But that was aimed towards the children
Mhm,
because I hadn't done that for a while. Now, I had been away in New Zealand for over a month.
mhm.
So since I came back, I didn't do the blog while I was away. And when I came back, then I was writing all about my experiences in New Zealand. And then I was away for Easter in West Cork in Ireland to see my mother. And I just did a bit about that. So it was all kind of like a travelogue.
Yeah,
So
and
it can vary.
those are interesting. I find those interesting because I've never been in those parts of the world. So that kind of the pictures and the stories and the history is interesting. You get to go there through you.
Yes.
Um,
So I'm hoping that, a lot of people, maybe Irish immigrants that are feeling a bit homesick, can look at
mhm,
that. Or maybe somebody with Irish ancestry might say, oh,
yeah,
yes, my ancestors came from that particular place. Or somebody who enjoys traveling as well. And sometimes I've been doing interviews. Again, it's mostly with maybe local artists of various sorts, interesting people I've come across, and I find them interesting myself. Well, I find they've got something to say for everyone, whether you agree with them or not.
right.
They've got an interesting perspective on life.
I think I would like to do that. We have some local authors, people I could interview. I think that would be kind of a nice thing to add. You have various categories. I have mostly stuck to the one that I mentioned, which are more more or less inspirational type writings, hopefully. But um, I I'm trying to organize currently a little bit more into it because aside from that, I'm just beginning to sort of open up very slowly a course that would be more for authors and maybe especially even first time authors where I would walk them through manuscript uh, preparation, how to put it together, front pages, back pages, and many things like that, just within their manuscript in steps that are shorter and concise, the way I do it, that I find to be shorter and concise, and then to edit and to format for them. So I plan to write some blogs on that type of thing as well, although that's very different than what I've been writing.
That sounds very interesting. And I usually do it once a week. That's enough for me, actually,
Me
because I
too.
find even just doing it once a week is quite difficult. And sometimes if I'm away or something, I might let it go.
Mhm.
And then you might get two the next week.
I do once a week as well, and I find that enough too. Although I do best when I write them a little bit ahead. So on that very week, maybe I'm not scrounging, for I usually have ideas. It's more a
Yes.
matter of getting them done. And so if I have time to get ahead and I have several ideas, I like to write those um, and have them ready to go. And if something else comes up, I can always save them for later.
Yeah, what I normally do before I start is I do research. I do a lot of Googling,
Yeah.
read different things, and I think, well, yeah, that sounds good. And I try to vary it around, to have some quotes in or a poem or something like that. And then when I've done my research, I kind of make a plan of what I want to say.
Mhm.
Then I gather my pictures. Now I might have my own photographs, or I usually use Pexels, where you
Mhm.
can get free pictures because you have to be very careful of copyright.
Right.
And then I use a thing called Imgur, which means I download the picture from Pexels, then load it up to Imgur and use the URL from Imgur. I found that because when I was doing my blog to Goodreads, the pictures weren't coming up. And I was told maybe if I use Imgur that they would, and that's why I did it.
I have
So
had the
that's what
exact same. I'll have to look into that. I've had the exact same experience. I cannot usually get my pictures on Goodreads. So,
So when I do my blog, it does go out. I try to share it as much as possible. I share it on different groups, depending on the topic. I
mhm,
share it to different groups on Facebook and some of my own groups, so groups I'm in, say if it's to do with writing, if it's to do with my own children's books, which is why I write a lot about for children and for parents. And I send it to I think they go to Instagram, TikTok, all the social media places I can put it.
Right. That's one thing. Think about if you're someone who's not a blogger, there is the extra time and work of posting it once you've written it. I mean, you write it on your website, you have it there for those who stop by. But if you have a subscribers list, I always immediately send it out to my subscribers, sometimes all customers, depending on the topic. If I'm writing about a new release, some kind of something new in the bookstore that I'm doing, I might send it to all customers, including subscribers. And then I too like to send it to a couple of places on Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. And it takes a little time sometimes, especially if your computer's having any kind of glitch or any platform's having some kind of glitch, to get them out.
Something else I've been experimenting with now is on WordPress anyway, you can have a kind of robotic voice.
Oh, okay.
Do an audio version of your blog. Now, the only problem is I find now when I use pictures and I've got captions underneath, sometimes if there's a space or something, it says something very weird. Now you can go into it, and if you know how to edit, you can edit these things out, but I haven't gone back and done that yet. I said, well, look, I'll load them up as audios anyway.
Okay.
And especially for people that might have visual impairment or something.
Right. I don't know if that's available to me on GoDaddy. I'll have to look into that, but I use an app daily for so many things. It's called Voice Record Pro.
Okay.
And it has like a higher level and a mid-level. I mean, you can kind of set it. It has settings where you can sort of take out background noise. And I'm using that to try to start audiobooks because it's good enough quality just to speak into my phone or tablet and use that. I just have to have a quiet space. But those can be uploaded to email and text and various places. I'm not sure how it would actually look in my blog. It might just be a link they have to click. But I think that is a good idea because not everyone can read easily, maybe due to eyesight. And audio is a big thing in that case.
Well, see, it's not actually my own voice, which is, I suppose it would be preferable, but I'm not really sure. It sounds more complicated, but I just took advantage of what WordPress were offering.
Yeah.
So it comes up and then it goes to Spotify. So people just click on the Spotify thing at the top of the blog and they can go to it.
That's something I've thought about and done a little bit with blogs is, we put them out there in text, but we can read them. I mean, if we have a podcast, or even just another place to read them, we can read them on social media. We can read something ourselves or with another voice and put them on, the podcast platforms. I was using a podcast for a while. I still have it, but it allows you as much time as you want. And then I started using Swell, which is a 5-minute mini podcast. And there are poets on there who read their poetry. Others of us that just talk or tell stories. I read a poem there yesterday, and you only have 5 minutes unless you want to do part 1, 2, 3. But it is another way to send your blog out that's audio rather than just text. There are some various ways.
It's interesting with all the technology that's out there now to be able to try and use it anyway and experiment with it.
That's usually the way I learn it, is experimenting. You can read as much as you want, but I usually have to get in and just try. And
now, another thing that we're advised to do as bloggers is to try and use certain words and try and get
keywords
noticed by Google and build a better audience, but I'm still not that great on that kind of thing.
I'm not that great at that either. I don't know that I remember to think about it all the time.
No.
But it is a good idea to try to fill that into our, include that into our blogs. It just takes some thinking to remember all of that.
It does. It kind of takes the fun out of it for me anyway. I think it's too mechanical, but I know it's meant to work and it's meant to be good.
it gets tedious, and for me, tedious is difficult. I don't like anything too tedious. That's one reason I'm
Yeah.
kind of creating this other course. It's meant to be not tedious, and so I just need to find a way to include that in my blogs. I always try to have one photo, like you usually have more than one, as a sort of a header photo that can draw attention because, like you said, that helps draw attention. And I don't have a lot of choice in layout on mine, but there's some things I can do with it. And highlighting words or, uh, italics or bold or indentations or larger fonts. There's things like that you can do
Yes.
as well.
And do you have like connections now to YouTube if you want to put up something from YouTube and stuff like that?
Yes. Oh, that's right. I didn't mention YouTube. That's another place where you can actually read. You can read your books, you can read your blogs, whichever, however creative you
Yes.
can be, you can come up with some place to put it. And like this, we'll put on YouTube as well as other places that we'll
And
post.
you can load this up to your blog as well from
Yes.
YouTube.
Hmm.
So that's handy.
Yes, that is handy. Um, I think as writers, one thing I always keep in mind for myself, and you mentioned it, is who am I writing this for? And I think we all have a little bit different way of approaching uh, our blogs and just what we write. And so we attract maybe different readers. And sometimes there's a crossover. I'm mostly nonfiction writer, but I'm also writing fiction. And so there is that crossover. And you've written books and you've written poetry. You have that crossover. But I'm always trying to keep in mind who is this for, because the people who have signed up on my subscribers list, I can see like a particular type of subject matter. But it doesn't mean you can't experiment and try other things too.
Well, I must say, I always enjoy your blog because I always find them very inspiring or thought provoking. So
Oh, well, thank you.
that's good.
That's what I want them to be, but usually it's something that has caused inspiration or provoked thought within myself, something that's struck me and I'm trying to share it. But sometimes, it's fun just to write something different, like when I might post up one of my poems or a real short story. Or what I try to do with mine too is once a quarter, usually the last, I do my blogs on Monday. So the last Monday of a quarter, I usually do more like a newsletter. It varies when that comes out, depends on what's happening with my books and other things. But I try to have some kind of newsletter just to update maybe my progress where I am in a book,
Yes.
when it might be released. Maybe I haven't said yet what it's about, or maybe I'll give a cover. I'll look at the cover, sort of a sneak peek at the cover if it's ready. Or this might be what the cover looks like, something that's a little different and just a newsletter. Do you do that as well?
I have a newsletter. No, I don't have a wide audience, but it's mostly friends.
Mm-hmm.
But which I sent out by email, and I use MailChimp for that.
Okay.
So that's kind of a different approach. That is more personal about what's been happening in my life and with my books.
Okay.
But I suppose it could actually use the newsletters. I usually do it once a month.
Okay.
And I suppose they could be put together in a blog for the year or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just an
Yeah,
idea.
that's another thing that I know we've been told and talked about before is combining our blogs into a book. And I read a book. I think I have one on my shelf somewhere, a book that is a combination of blogs by a gentleman. I've had it a long time, so I'd have to go back and look. But
I've kind of thought of it, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
mm-hmm. I thought one time that there was a problem with if you publish something, for instance, if you put it on your website, that's considered published, and that it couldn't be published again. But
I think it's only a problem, is it, if you're entering a competition or something like that?
Right. I think just to combine them into your own book with your own blog
That's
is not a problem.
no, because it's all your own work anyway.
Yes.
Whereas if you're sending it off now to be put as a submission to a magazine or
Right.
an anthology or something like that, I think then you couldn't do it.
Right. So there's a few things to look at, you know, and oh, one thing that I was going to mention, and I know that you think about this too, is when I am done writing my blogs, I have to read them and read them and edit and edit and edit because there'll be something that sneaks through every single time. And here's the thing that I found, okay, I write it and I think it's good, but maybe I haven't had any other eyes on it, only mine. And I send it out to social media. Well, if a mistake is found, or usually I find it, I can go back to my website, correct it, and the next person who clicks is going to see the corrected blog. They're not going to catch, they're not going to be stuck reading the errors. But when I send it out as an email to subscribers, they are stuck with whatever mistake is in there, unless I want to send it to them again and again. Because
And again,
I really have to be careful because the tiniest things will bother me. I mean, sometimes you might get a glaring mistake, but I've decided recently to at least let my husband look through it. They're short. He can take the time to read them, and he's pretty good at catching something that, you know, our own eyes might just overlook. And then it's it's bothersome and it can be embarrassing too.
well, I find with WordPress it's great because you can go back very quickly and change it.
Yes.
So
I can change mine as well, but I can't change it out once, change it to those who received it in email. They've got like a hard
no,
copy,
no, yes.
but I can change it very quickly, like, oh no, and go in and change it on my website. And so the next person who clicks from wherever, they're going to get the corrected blog.
Because sometimes I've found I've been a bit repetitious with some words, or
Hmm.
yeah, or
Yeah,
left some words out, things, typos, yeah.
all of those things, you know, it just, that's why it's good to write them ahead, because if we're trying to get them out on a certain day, we don't want to be doing all of that on that day necessarily. You know, if we've written it and then we've taken the time to edit it and taken the time to proofread it and
Mm.
all of that, and then our day comes to send it out. I mean, even most sites you can schedule them to go out. You know, you don't even have to go back and do that. You can schedule them to go out. But I usually like to go back and check mine again.
Actually, it's great fun when you actually are prepared and you've scheduled it for a few days later, and then you forget about it, and suddenly you say, "Oh yeah, it's there." That's great.
Yeah. And then you find an error. You're like, oh no.
Yes.
But most of those, if it's online, you can almost always fix it. You know, edit it where it is or fix it on your website, but
Or
not an
somebody might.
email.
I have, a family might have said, "Oh, did you realize you said such and such a thing?" Or so I have to go back and change it.
Uh-huh. It's an endless job, you know, editing and proofreading. It's just so easy to miss things, but it's part of the game, you know.
And of course, I find there's the difference in American spellings and spellings we would use in England and Ireland and places. And so I sometimes I put both because
Oh,
I
okay.
say, well, I might put a slash between the two and put the two
Trying to make
spellings.
everybody happy.
Well, I do it specifically if I'm dealing with the children because I feel it's
Okay,
confusing just to show there's different spellings.
that's true. Well, I always know reading a book, oh, this is um, an English writer. This person's in the UK because they're putting the U's in those words, or the S's were really
Yes.
V's, and that kind of thing. Just the way things are put together is a little bit different.
And I forgot what I was going to say now.
Oh, well, I think that for me, is it just in my blogs? When I do use a photo, I was going to say I use Unsplash a lot, which are free photos as well. But they always, when you go to download it, they put the person's name, and I try to write that down. And when I upload my photo, I'll put photo credit and give them. I mean, it's free. I don't think I necessarily have to do that, but you know, it's their photo. So I
Mm.
try to give them credit, or if it's my photo, I'll give me credit. Sometimes
I should do that. I haven't done it, but I should do that
it'll
because it is
say
nice.
it'll say on Unsplash, like, give credit to this person for their photo, and you can send it out on social
Mm.
media. But I'm not using it that way, so I just, under the photo in my blog, give credit to that person. I mean, they probably never see it, but still.
That's it. Yeah.
And occasionally, excuse me, occasionally I put a photo up and somebody will comment as if it's my photo, because I put a lot of photographs up, but if it's like not my photo. So I
Yes.
try to remember to put not my photo, or photo found, wherever, Unsplash or something, so people know that it's not mine.
Yes.
But it's nice to give people credit for their work.
It's nice to give people credit.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, actually.
So how long have you been writing a blog, Eileen?
I think it's probably about 2.5 years, maybe, or a bit longer. And I have it on my website, which also a blog brings people to my website too, which is good because they might see my books.
Yes.
So it's good
I
for
know,
writers, I think, to do a blog.
I'm sure this is true for you. I can see on my website like how many visitors I've had, and how many in the last month, and how many come from social media, or how many just came through the web. Give some statistics like that.
Yeah, I'd love to see what countries they're coming from, because
Yeah,
I'm just saying, are they English speaking countries, or are they like other countries that speak Spanish or something else? So it's
right,
interesting to see the
right.
spread of where your work is going.
It is. Because we can look and see, at least through Amazon, we can see what countries our books were purchased in.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
But
and it tells you where the referrals, was it from Facebook, was it from
mm,
LinkedIn or whatever. So that's interesting too. It gives you feedback to what's working.
it does, because then you find out, like, certain groups of people are often more interested than others in certain books. But like I said, I first started writing blogs, I'd say close to 15 years ago, but it was a little sporadic. And then when I got a website with my first book, it was built by the publisher. Actually, not the first book, later. I only had access to the blog page, nothing else on the website. And that was with WordPress. And I did use it for the blog then. When I shut that down and became an independent publisher, author, publisher, I built my own website through GoDaddy. And so then I have access to all of it. But it can be a lifelong thing to write. It might change as we go what kind of blogs we write.
Yeah, sometimes I'm thinking, oh, this is like homework. Do I have to? And other times I look forward to it. So
There are those times when I might pull something that I've written before, or take something from a book that I want to share that day, and it's not a fresh writing, so it gives me a little vacation that week, to reuse something, repurpose it.
So, I mean, even when I did miss weeks when I was away on holiday or something, I felt guilty.
Yeah,
So, because kind of saying, well, look, it's up to myself. I'm the blogger. I can do what I want.
that's
So
true.
it's your choice.
It's just I always try to be consistent, so
Yes.
I'll try to share something in some way on that day, and even if it's later in the day. But it is worthwhile, I think. And if somebody out there has not ever blogged, there are many bloggers, but if you're an author or writer, you haven't blogged before, you can get started that way and kind of find out who your audience is a little bit.
I think it's actually a good discipline too,
It
because
is.
normally I write fiction and this is just non-fiction,
Mhm.
basically. So it's a different type of writing
It
and a
is.
different kind of planning as well.
It is. Yep. And I do it from the opposite side. So it is a
Yes.
different type of planning and thinking. So anything else you have on blogs? I think I covered basically my
Just look
main
at my
point.
notes here. I think we've covered most of it anyway. I say there's so many different approaches to blogging that
There
it's up
are
to yourself what works for you.
so many different subjects as well. Um, whether you're an author or not, there are many blog subjects out there. But as an author, you also have many opportunities for different subject matter, because we all write different things and approach it differently. So, as a blogger myself, I'd say go for it and give it a shot if you haven't been blogging already.
Yes, it's worth it anyway.
Yep. It's very challenging, actually, and it is a good discipline. It's a good discipline to keep you going.
And it's another learning experience as well.
It is.
And what I love is when I do get feedback from readers and they comment on it. So I enjoy that. So it's good to give feedback to bloggers.
It is. Yes, it's good to give feedback to bloggers. And I try to give feedback too, because it is appreciated, I think, for everybody who writes. Well, so maybe we ended our time today.
I think so. Okay. So happy blogging, everybody.
Happy blogging, everybody. And thanks for meeting up with me again, Eileen.
Thank you.
Back in about 3 months with another topic, which we haven't decided yet.
That's it. We'll be thinking on that.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.